Big news from the state of Minnesota. Today is primary day, but I want to talk about some news that was made last week. Vice President Kamala Harris officially tapped your state's governor, Tim Walz, as her running mate. Before we get started, I just want to know, what's your response?
Well, we were not totally surprised by that choice. There'd been a lot of speculation before that pick was made, and Tim Walz was always on the short list of potential candidates. It was a little surprising, I think, politically. Many of us believed that the Democrats had a stronger choice in Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania, of course, is a battleground state as well, but with significantly more electoral votes than Minnesota has. But I think the Democrats have some turmoil within their party. For some reason, they have decided that the Jewish coalition that has traditionally been a big supporter of the Democratic Party, they're now at odds with the Palestinian supporters, the Hamas supporters. So I'm not sure how that works out. I think that is the reason why they made the choice they did. But Tim Walz is, if he was thought to balance this ticket in some way, I think the Democrats are very mistaken. Tim Walz is a very, very left-wing governor. He has implemented some terrible policies for Minnesota. He has governed poorly. Of course, we all remember how he governed during the COVID pandemic, very dictatorial, very unilaterally, did not seek any consensus and implemented some pretty harsh rules. And then, of course, during the riots and the aftermath of the death of George Floyd, he essentially let the city of Minneapolis burn for 3 days, did nothing, eventually called in the National Guard, which quelled that riot, but the city still has not recovered. The 3rd precinct, the police precinct, is still not up and running. Businesses have left. There's a crime wave, violent crime wave going on in Minneapolis. People are fearful. That used to be a pretty thriving city for nightlife after baseball games or basketball games. It's pretty much dead. And I think this is all attributed to the policies of Tim Walz.
We will get into specifics in a moment, but he held a congressional seat in a district that Donald Trump won pretty handily back in 2016. So he has been painted as someone who can attract both Republicans and Democrats alike. What do you make of that portrayal?
Well, he did represent the 1st congressional district, which is in southern Minnesota, and it does have a significant rural element to it. I think what it shows is he's kind of a chameleon. After he ran for governor and got elected, what he realized, and any Democrat would realize it, that the balance of power in Minnesota for the Democratic Party is a very, very far left, progressive, democratic socialist wing. Ilhan Omar, of course, is a classic representation of that. And so he has completely catered to that element as governor. So he has not been bipartisan. He's been probably the most partisan governor that we've seen in Minnesota. He's been very divisive, and he's been very difficult to work with. I served in the Senate for 14 years, was the Senate minority leader for 4 years, but I left before he became governor. But I still have friends in the legislature, and they say he's very difficult to work with. He's very partisan and not really willing to try to make any compromises with Republicans, and Republicans represent half the state. We've got 8 congressional seats, 4 are Republican, 4 are Democrat. This is not a left-wing state. It's very evenly divided politically, and a smart governor would recognize that and try to do some things to unite the state, but Governor Walz has not done that. He's a big government liberal. He takes pride in that. He talked about famously that one person's socialism is just another person's neighborliness, but he's a guy who has never had a private sector job. Every job he's ever had has been a government job. So I think in his mind, if you're looking at economic growth or economic development, it all happens by government. And anything that is good is going to be done by some kind of government agency. I think he's wrong about that. That is the classic kind of socialist big government philosophy, and he embraces it totally.